Ladies and gentlemen of the Briar, hopefully it is not too windy and it doesn't come up to be a horrible, I don't know what you'd call that, just blows into the mic and it sounds like crap. I know a lot of you all have like a little mic you put on with a little fuzzy on it, but I've also noticed that a lot of times if it's windy like this, it still sounds pretty rough. And unfortunately, I can't be that picky. It's windy a lot here where I'm at, so that is that. But yeah, I've decided to do, well, this one's done a lot. It really is. Well, I mean, a lot of blends. I mean, almost all the blends, unless it's something brand new that just came out. There's a lot of reviews on them, but honestly, like, I think that's a good thing, because my impression of a blend is going to be different than your impression, and so on and so forth. So the more of them, the better, I think. At least I appreciate it when there's more reviews out there to be watched on any product that I'm trying to get a bead on. But this one, Nightcap, Peterson's Nightcap, it is again, this one's done a lot. I think mostly just because it really is such a great blend. I kind of like it if I'm in the mood for something dark, like a dark fired Kentucky type blend, but I don't necessarily want that. It's nice where it has, you got the Virginia, has the Oriental, the Latakia or Latakia, however you want to say it. Some people get like really big on that. Tomato, does it really matter? I don't know. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna fire this up. I mean, it is good stuff. And we'll talk about it. I know a lot of you get into the whole, what pipe are we sipping this out of? This is a Peterson. It's one of the Halloween ones. I love this pipe. It's a great pipe. It sips really well. It's got the systems aspect in there, so kind of, cuts down on the good old saliva juice dripping back down into the bowl, theoretically. But yeah, so this is the Jackal and Hyde. It's pretty cool. It's a 317. This is the 2023 one. But yeah, it's got the whole rusticated on one side, smooth on the other. It's kind of nice. It's got that nice rich mahogany kind of look, and then a little bit darker there on that side. But anyway, besides the aesthetics, it also sips really well. It's one of those blends where, and there's been a few of these Northeaster one of the blends. It's one of those blends where it reminds me of New England. It reminds me of autumn in New England, maybe even winter. But the smokiness, but it's the sweet smokiness, right? So you get that sweet smoky aspect. With the Orientals going in there, with the Latakia, it just gives that maple house, like you can smell the wood fire going, but there's a sweetness that's underlying it. Yeah, that's what I get with these types of blends, and specifically with this one. This does have a little bit of perique in it, which I think honestly gives it that sweet tanginess, gives it that. But gives it the spice, right? That's peppery spice, and a little bit of a bite. But I think it is one of those blends where it's almost like kind of giving it its I don't know, giving it its due merit. I mean, it's a good blend, and it has some complexity enough to it that it's something like I wouldn't want to be sipping this while I'm just like out on a hike, or maybe lunting around. I just wouldn't. It's I don't know. It's worth enjoying. It's worth sitting and enjoying the flavor of this, because it is a very flavorful blend. 100%. It's bold. Like, it's not as like bold as like, you know, like a dark fired Kentucky, like a bird's eye type blend, but it's still bold enough, and it's still complex enough that I wouldn't want to just go about my day sipping on this all day long. I think that would definitely probably turn you a little green. But again, whatever, tolerance. It looks like overnight there might have been a little bit of an oops with some drones from Russia going over into the Poland territory, although to be honest, it's politics. It's always dirty. Politics are dirty, you know. And I think the funny part is we're in this day of mass information, but yet we really don't know much. I mean, we don't know much. They know plenty. And so, who knows, right? Who knows? Senator Palpatine said it best, I think, you know. Good and evil are just a point of view, Anakin. Paraphrasing, but, you know, it's true. You're never going to find any conflict where the other side feels as though they were in the massive wrong. Not until hindsight, you know. I do, however, feel as though NATO in general, I think a lot is going to change over the next decade, considering NATO. I mean, lest we forget, NATO was originally constructed and assembled. It was really just to kind of counter the whole Soviet Union aspect, right? And so I think a lot of people have rightfully criticized, you know, or at least questioned whether or not it should have dissolved, or at least been seriously rearranged and maybe governed and constricted a bit. You know, and it's, I think, a big piece too, you know, it's semantics too when it comes to politics, right? I mean, like, NATO doesn't occupy anywhere. That's true. However, NATO does hang out in a lot of territories, and it's all based on their members, right? I mean, it almost kind of has this like Italian mafia mob kind of a feel to it, in my opinion. You know, when it comes to NATO, it has its members, and you can join, and if you join in, you're paying in, right? But don't worry, you're paying for protection, right? Protection from who? Anybody who messes with you, they mess with all of us, right? Great. But who decides whether or not that person who's messing with you had the right to do so? Who's to decide what your actions should be? Well, don't worry, NATO will help you decide. I mean, honestly, you know, so there's a lot to it, and obviously if you're a member and you're paying in, now you've got into the whole, you know, geopolitical component, and that's dangerous. You know, that's dangerous because you've got this group who have their own incentives and their own motives. And don't forget too, NATO has not occupied, but however you want to call it, not occupied, but are present in non-member countries. And they're there in order to show stability and to actively have like a forward stance for their members. You know, again, it's having that mafia strongman hanging outside your pub, making sure nobody does anything wrong, no matter what you do. That's the rub, no matter what you do. And it does get weird like that. Because who decides? And it's all sneaky stuff. It's all behind the scenes stuff, you know? Whether it's us here in the States, you know, with Trump giving Patriot missile defense systems, and I'll give it to NATO or I'll give it to the EU, and then they can do what they want with it. I have nothing to do with it. It's not my thing. They can do theirs, but I'm not my war. Cool, except, you know what I mean? Like if my friend is having a fight with another person and I say I'm not getting involved, and then I hand my friend a knife and he stabs him. It has nothing to do with me. Of course it has something to do with me. I gave him the knife to stab him with. So, there's a lot of that. And again, who's to decide? Who's to decide what's right, what's wrong? I mean, look at Iraqi freedom, right? Same kind of thing in a sense. Same kind of thing. Like NATO didn't directly put troops out there, right? Kind of. But they did a lot of indirect stuff, and that's the tricky part, right? Like NATO members did contribute. There was a divide during Iraqi freedom because, some people called it out as bogus as it was. And we all know nowadays that was a total bogus thing. But there were still some members who actually did put troops on the ground. So it was actually troop deployment. So there is this expansion component too, and it is a militarized group. So that expansion matters. And it's playing with politics, and it has a lot of bias to it. I mean, it's actually been considered by some as almost a juggernaut kind of movement as far as their expansion goes, with its own political momentum, right? Some people arguing that domestic politics override a more measured approach as far as where they go and what they do. And there's money involved, and we all know what that leads to. Power and money are not a good combo, and that's what it comes down to with NATO and its members, right? I mean, let's face it, that's just the way it is. And that's where that bias starts to come in, and they've been accused quite often, and they're criticized quite often about that bias as far as humanitarian aid and who gets it and how it looks, depending on the member, depending on that member's country's influence geopolitically. And there's a lot of times where it's been criticized with it overstepping its actual mandate. I think a great example of that would be in Libya, right? I mean, in Libya, the UN's mandate was they were there to protect the citizens, but then yet NATO's mandate was completely different. NATO's mandate started to shift into a primary focus on, again, the overthrowing of a certain political party and a certain political regime. I don't know. Anyways, it is getting interesting. Like all I think about is Team America, the comedy, because it's true. Like it's this whole Western view of imperialism, and it really kind of becomes that, and real fast when it's like, hey, like these are my demands. Well, hey, why are you not negotiating? Because you're not negotiating. You're just telling me, hey, this is what you're going to do. Are you going to do it? No? Oh, you're refusing to negotiate. That's not a negotiation. A negotiation's like, hey, these are my concerns and these are my priorities. What are your concerns and what are your priorities? And how can we find a way that we can match that up? Such a good blend. Yeah, it's a very sweet, tangy smokiness. Anybody who burns wood, specifically anybody who burns a birch blend, right, in their fire, if you throw a couple birch logs on there, birch are great. I mean, they don't last long, but man, the BTUs those things throw out when they're going up. So they're great as a, throw one birch log in there with some hardwood, right? But anyways, there's a very specific smell, and not even so much when you're in the home, but if you're like driving by a house. And I remember my father used to always point this stuff out to me when I was younger. He would notice when someone was burning birch, and he'd make note, and you're like, somebody's burning birch. And how, when, why my brain was able to finally connect that, when I was older, burning my own fire. But that's also kind of what this has, is that, on the retrohale, it has that same spicy sweetness that you have if you throw like an oak log on a fire. It's very pleasant. It's a very pleasant smoke. I think all the flavors just blend so much better when it's actually had a chance to sit. When I say sit, like I've noticed, I've cellared some of this for 6 months plus before delving in. Just having that extra jar sitting makes a lot of difference. It really does. It's kind of like if you make a chili or a stew, it always seems to have more of a flavor profile, more pronounced flavor, more blended, like the next day or 2 days later after you've actually made it. Now that all the acids and everything from the food have had a chance for that marriage to occur, definitely the case with this blend. Let it do that. It makes a difference. But anyways, that is it. Peterson's Nightcap. If you have not tried it, try it. It's great. It's great stuff. Let me know your thoughts on this blend as well. Until next time, be well and happy sipping.